10 unbelievable archaeological discoveries scientists still can't explain. Hello and welcome to Ancient History. My friend, did you know that the history of humanity was not written solely by kings, mighty empires, or legendary battles? Hidden deep beneath the earth are countless strange stories still waiting to be uncovered. Some discoveries have left archaeologists astonished because of a level of craftsmanship far beyond what should have been possible in their time. Some mysteries have shaken the very foundations of what we thought we knew about the past. And there are even artifacts whose true origins remain a major unanswered question to this day. In today's video, we're going to explore 15 of the most unbelievable archaeological discoveries ever found around the world. These are discoveries that have sparked years of debate among researchers, artifacts that seem completely out of place in their own eras, and ancient secrets that continue to challenge the understanding of modern humanity. So, are you ready to begin this journey of discovery with me? If so, get ready, because the deeper we go into this list, the more you'll realize that humanity's past is far more mysterious than we ever imagined. Now, without making you wait any longer, let's dive right into our very first discovery. Mysterious staircase beneath a hospital reveals a Roman cemetery buried for 1,700 years. Have you ever imagined that beneath a modern hospital, a place where thousands of people pass through every day, there could be an ancient world that has remained hidden and forgotten for nearly 2 millennia? Probably not, because it sounds more like the plot of an archaeological adventure movie than real life. Yet this is a completely true story that recently left researchers in Romania astonished. It all began when a hospital in the city of Constanța planned to renovate and expand its facilities. At first, it seemed like nothing more than an ordinary construction project. However, because the area was located near the edge of an ancient cemetery that once belonged to the Roman Empire, archaeologists were invited to conduct an inspection before construction equipment began work. No one expected that what appeared to be a routine survey would lead to one of the most fascinating historical discoveries ever made in the region. As the layers of soil were gradually removed, archaeologists made a surprising discovery: a brick staircase that had remained almost completely intact. It was later determined to be more than 1,700 years old. Step by step, the staircase descended deep underground like a doorway through time, opening a path into the distant past. And at the end of that passage lay an ancient Roman burial chamber that had rested undisturbed and unknown for centuries. The deeper the excavation went, the more remarkable the discoveries became. In total, archaeologists uncovered 34 ancient graves along with numerous human skeletons that were relatively well preserved. But what truly excited the experts were the grave goods that had survived inside the tombs. From finely crafted jewelry and glassware to ancient coins and pottery vessels imported from as far away as North Africa, every artifact seemed to tell the story of a prosperous period of the Roman Empire. Even more remarkably, researchers discovered part of an extremely rare ceremonial shield, an artifact of tremendous historical significance. These findings not only reveal the wealth of the people buried there, but also provide evidence of an extensive trade network that stretched across the empire. Just imagine it, nearly 2,000 years ago, goods from distant lands were still able to travel thousands of miles to reach this location. Doesn't that suggest that the ancient world was far more interconnected than we often assume? However, among all the artifacts uncovered, one object attracted more attention than any other. It was a stone slab engraved with ancient Greek inscriptions. According to preliminary assessments, the slab may once have been part of a coffin or funerary monument and was later reused during the construction of the cemetery. An inscription still visible on its surface refers to a connection with a certain deity. Unfortunately, the most important section, the part containing the name of the god, has been lost to time, leaving behind a mystery that researchers have still not been able to fully solve. The discovery becomes even more significant when we consider that modern-day Constanța was built on the site of the ancient city of Tomis. Greek settlers first established a colony there around 600 BC. Over the centuries, Tomis gradually developed into an important regional center before being incorporated into the Roman Empire in 29 BC. After the fall of Rome, the region passed through the hands of several different empires and rulers before eventually becoming the city of Constanța that we know today. What a fascinating discovery, isn't it? The strange three-chamber Roman vessel that has puzzled experts for years. You know, the world of archaeology is fascinating. Many artifacts that are unearthed can be identified almost immediately. A sword, for example, was used for combat, a coin was used for trade, and an ordinary jar was typically used to store water or wine. But every now and then, history leaves behind objects so unusual that even leading experts can debate their purpose for years without reaching a definitive conclusion. And the remarkable vessel we're about to explore is one of those mysteries. The story of this enigmatic artifact takes us to Carlisle, a peaceful city in Cumbria, England. Today, Carlisle is home to around 70,000 residents and is well known for its proximity to the legendary Hadrian's Wall, the massive defensive structure that once marked the northern frontier of the Roman Empire. To many people, Carlisle is simply a historic city with a rich past, but few realize that beneath its modern streets lie countless traces of the ancient Roman world, quietly waiting to be discovered. During an archaeological excavation at the site of what was once an ancient Roman bathhouse on Blackfriars Street, located in the heart of the Roman settlement of Luguvalium, archaeologists from Wardell Armstrong Archaeology, working in partnership with Carlisle City Council, made a discovery that surprised everyone involved. Buried among layers of soil and debris accumulated over centuries, they uncovered an extremely rare artifact unlike anything commonly found in excavations across Britain. At first glance, the object appeared to be an ordinary ceramic vessel. However, once it had been cleaned and examined more closely, experts quickly realized they were looking at something highly unusual. The vessel was crafted from a smooth, sandy yellow ceramic, indicating that it had undergone a carefully controlled and sophisticated firing process. Its most remarkable feature was its structure. Instead of having a single chamber like a typical vessel, this artifact contained 3 separate compartments positioned side by side. 2 of the chambers remained almost completely intact, while the third had suffered partial damage over time. What intrigued researchers the most, however, was that the compartments were not entirely separated from one another. Small openings connected the chambers internally, allowing liquid to flow from one compartment to another. The entire vessel also stood on 3 sturdy legs, creating a design that was both balanced and deeply puzzling. This unusual construction gave rise to numerous theories, and even today, no one can say with certainty what the vessel was actually designed for. The first theory suggests that it may have been a special type of Roman oil lamp. According to this interpretation, each chamber would have held its own supply of oil and supported a separate wick. When all 3 were lit simultaneously, the vessel would have functioned as a unique 3-branched lamp, possibly used during sacred ceremonies or special family occasions. However, other experts believe the artifact may have played a role in ancient religious rituals. Under this theory, the 3 chambers could have been used to hold different liquids such as water, milk, or wine. As the liquid slowly moved through the connecting openings, the process may have symbolized concepts such as connection, purification, or offerings to the gods. If this interpretation is correct, the vessel would provide valuable insight into the spiritual life and religious practices of the Roman inhabitants who once lived in this region. But the story becomes even more intriguing with a third theory. Some researchers believe the vessel may have been used during lavish banquets hosted by Rome's upper classes. Imagine distinguished guests gathered around a dining table, drinking wine while participating in entertaining and challenging games. The 3-chamber vessel may have been used in contests of skill, perhaps involving the careful transfer of liquid from one compartment to another without spilling a drop. Similar games have been documented in the famous ancient Roman city of Pompeii. Of course, all of these ideas remain theories. After spending nearly 2,000 years buried beneath the ground, the vessel still possesses the remarkable ability to make modern people wonder and ask questions. Was it a sacred ceremonial lamp? A vessel used in religious rituals? Or simply an entertainment piece used during the extravagant feasts of wealthy Roman nobles? For now, that mystery remains unsolved. But perhaps it is precisely these unanswered questions that make archaeology so captivating. Don't you think so? 700,000 square foot ancient town, hidden beneath the sands of the Taklamakan Desert. Can you imagine an ancient town as large as several dozen soccer fields, lying silently beneath desert sands and remaining hidden for more than 2,000 years with almost no one knowing it existed? If you've never thought about that before, then join me as we travel back in time to late January 2024. That was when Chinese archaeologists accomplished what seemed nearly impossible. They discovered an ancient town covering at least 700,000 square feet beneath the Taklamakan Desert. Of that area, the central urban section alone occupied roughly 43,000 square feet. Dr. Wu Xinhua, who led the archaeological team from the Xinjiang Academy of Social Sciences, described the discovery as a remarkable find during the survey of this arid region. Based on preliminary analysis, researchers determined that the town dates back to the Western Han period, which lasted from 206 BC to AD 220. In other words, when we look at these ruins, we are witnessing the remains of a civilization that is more than 2,000 years old. A realization that is both exciting and astonishing, isn't it? What makes this town especially remarkable is that much of its architectural layout has been preserved relatively well, despite being largely buried beneath desert sands. Archaeologists uncovered evidence of 4 layers of defensive walls, each bearing its own unique characteristics. The innermost wall measured 58.4 feet from north to south and 47.9 feet from east to west, serving as the heart of the settlement. The second wall contained the remains of collapsed ceramic pillars, reminders of the structures that once stood proudly in this location. The third wall appeared to resemble a broad avenue, while the outermost wall consisted of rows of thatched roof buildings, clearly indicating that this was an organized community rather than a spontaneously formed village. Between the third and fourth walls, archaeologists also discovered traces of residential homes, confirming that this area was inhabited by people during the Western Han period. They uncovered mourning garments as well as various types of construction timber, allowing researchers to conduct radiocarbon dating in order to determine the site's age more precisely. Particularly noteworthy is the fact that the wide variety of wood and plant materials used in these homes suggests that this now barren desert region once had abundant water resources. This means that life here during the Western Han era was likely not nearly as harsh as we might imagine today. In fact, the area appears to have been relatively prosperous and well-suited for long-term settlement. This discovery not only helps us better understand the history of the Taklamakan region, but also opens a new window into the study of ancient civilizations in Western China. Mysterious jar beneath a cemetery reveals a treasure of more than 1,100 ancient coins in Turkey. Hey, what do you think would happen if an ordinary day suddenly turned into a moment that changed the history of an entire region? What if, beneath a site where local residents were preparing to build a new cemetery, there was a secret that had remained hidden for centuries? Sounds hard to believe, doesn't it? But here's the thing, there are treasures that archaeologists spend years searching for without finding a single trace. Yet sometimes, history reveals itself in the most unexpected ways. Not during massive expeditions, not at the bottom of the ocean, and not in the middle of a remote desert, but during the most ordinary tasks carried out by local residents. And the story we're about to explore, which took place in a small village in Turkey, proves exactly that. The story began quite simply. Residents of Unanswered village, near the famous Turkish city of Tarsus, were leveling land and preparing a site for a new cemetery. No one imagined that this routine work would lead to one of the region's most remarkable archaeological discoveries. While digging, they unexpectedly struck a ceramic object buried deep underground. At first glance, the ancient jar didn't seem particularly unusual. However, the more closely people examined it, the more they felt that it belonged to a very distant era. Rather than opening the jar themselves to see what was inside, the villagers immediately reported the discovery to local authorities. That responsible decision helped preserve an incredibly valuable historical find in its original condition. Just a few hours later, police officers arrived to secure the area and contacted experts from the Tarsus Museum to conduct an urgent investigation. Their goal was to ensure that the site remained undisturbed and that any historical treasures hidden beneath the ground would not be damaged. When archaeologists and museum specialists began examining the discovery, they quickly realized that it was far more significant than anyone had initially imagined. Inside the ancient jar was not merely a handful of artifacts, it contained an enormous cache of coins that had been buried centuries ago. Layer by layer, soil was carefully removed. The experts worked with extraordinary precision to ensure that none of the artifacts would be damaged. The deeper they excavated, the more coins appeared. Packed tightly together inside the jar, the coins looked as though they had been hidden only yesterday. The sight was so remarkable that even veteran archaeologists struggled to hide their excitement. Finally, after a lengthy and carefully supervised recovery operation, more than 1,100 ancient coins were brought to the surface. That impressive number makes this discovery one of the most significant archaeological coin hoards uncovered in the region in recent years. For archaeologists, however, this is much more than a treasure made of metal. Each coin is like a page from a history book preserved through time. They may reveal the names of kings, the dynasties that once ruled the region, ancient trade routes, or even political events that took place hundreds of years ago. For that reason, the unexpected discovery in Yunusoglu quickly generated excitement throughout Turkey's archaeological community. Today, the entire collection of coins has been transferred to the Tarsus Museum for further study. Experts are now working to determine the coin's origins, dates, and the meanings of the mysterious symbols found on each artifact. Because it is entirely possible that behind these more than 1,100 coins lies not only a buried treasure, but also the story of a person, a family, or perhaps even an entire chapter of history that has long been forgotten. So until the experts uncover the answers, we'll simply have to wait and see what secrets this remarkable discovery ultimately reveals. Buried Roman Temple Complex reveals shocking ritual secrets after nearly 2,000 years. Have you ever wondered what the spiritual life of the ancient Romans was really like? What did they pray for? What kinds of offerings did they present to their gods? And what mysterious ceremonies once took place behind the walls of their ancient temples? For centuries, many of these questions remained unanswered. But recently, an extraordinary archaeological discovery in Germany has allowed researchers to open a doorway into that ancient world of faith, revealing details that had previously existed only in historical theories. The story begins at Nida, an ancient settlement located on the northwestern outskirts of the city of Frankfurt. Today, the area is simply part of a modern urban landscape filled with busy roads and thriving neighborhoods. Yet few people realize that nearly 2,000 years ago, this land was an important center situated along the northern frontier of the mighty Roman Empire. While conducting archaeological excavations in the area, specialists from Frankfurt's Office of Monument Preservation unexpectedly discovered unusual architectural remains buried deep beneath the ground. At first, they believed they had found the ruins of a few isolated structures. However, as the excavation expanded, a much larger picture of the past began to emerge. What stood before them was not a single building, but an entire large-scale religious complex that had once played a significant role in the spiritual life of the ancient Roman community. What they uncovered left archaeologists astonished. The entire site was enclosed by an extensive perimeter wall, within which stood a complex of 11 stone structures built during different periods. This suggests that the site was not used for only a short time, but instead existed and developed over multiple generations. The buildings featured a unique layout and sophisticated architectural details, reflecting a considerable investment of both labor and resources. But what truly captured the attention of researchers lay beneath the surface. During the investigation, archaeologists identified approximately 70 ancient wells and 10 ritual burial pits. These were not ordinary burial pits. Instead, they appeared to be directly connected to religious activities that once took place at the site. Those discoveries immediately raised a host of new questions about the true purpose of this mysterious complex. And the surprises did not stop there. As the excavation continued, archaeologists recovered more than 5,000 fragments of elaborately painted wall plaster. Although time had shattered the plaster into countless pieces, the surviving fragments clearly showed that the complex had once been decorated in a remarkably lavish manner. In addition, numerous bronze fittings from doors and windows were uncovered, helping researchers reconstruct the image of a site that was far larger and more important than previously believed. According to the experts, the abundance of high-quality construction materials and intricate decorative details indicates that this sanctuary once occupied a prominent place in the spiritual life of the people of Nida. It may have served as a gathering place where residents performed important ceremonies to seek the protection and favor of the Roman gods. However, the most valuable evidence was discovered inside the wells and ritual pits themselves. There, archaeologists recovered large quantities of pottery along with an impressive collection of animal and plant remains that had been preserved through the centuries. Among the finds were fish bones, bird bones, and numerous ancient plant samples that had survived beneath the soil. After analyzing all of the collected evidence, The research team concluded that these remains were the traces of sacrificial feasts dedicated to the gods. Food, animals, and other offerings appear to have been used in religious ceremonies before being buried or placed into sacred wells as part of ritual practices. This represents an exceptionally rare form of evidence that allows scientists to better understand how ancient Romans expressed their religious beliefs along the empire's northern frontier. What makes the discovery even more fascinating is that, despite nearly 2,000 years having passed, these traces remain clear enough to tell the story of a world that disappeared long ago. And perhaps what makes this discovery truly special is not simply the ancient walls or the artifacts that were unearthed, but the fact that it allows us to glimpse the everyday lives of people from the past, people who prayed, made offerings, and placed their faith in the gods, much like people today continue to search for faith, meaning, and hope in their own lives. 2,000-year-old war horn may have once echoed during Queen Boudica's rebellion. Some archaeological artifacts discovered beneath the ground help scientists better understand how ancient people lived. Some objects reveal what they ate, what they wore, or how they built their homes. But every so often, a discovery opens a doorway to something far more elusive, something that time has almost completely erased from history: sound. And that is exactly what makes the story of an ancient war horn recently unearthed in West Norfolk, England, so fascinating. Think about it for a moment. Nearly 2,000 years ago, before loudspeakers, radios, or any form of modern communication technology existed, how did armies transmit signals across vast battlefields? How did warriors intimidate their enemies before the fighting even began? It's a difficult question to answer, isn't it? Well, the answer lies in specialized military instruments, and the horn that was recently discovered may have been one of them. During an archaeological excavation in West Norfolk, researchers unexpectedly uncovered what experts consider an extraordinarily rare artifact. Buried beneath layers of soil that had accumulated over centuries was a war horn dating back to the Iron Age. From the very first moments after its discovery, specialists realized that this was no ordinary find. And they were right. The more closely they examined the artifact, the more they recognized that its historical significance was far greater than they had initially imagined. The instrument was identified as an ancient horn known as a carnyx. This famous type of war horn was used by Celtic tribes during antiquity. Made primarily of bronze, the carnyx was not intended for entertainment or musical performances. It was built for war. The sound produced by the instrument is believed to have been incredibly powerful, piercing, and commanding, capable of inspiring friendly troops while simultaneously intimidating opposing forces. Even more remarkably, experts believe this may be the most complete carnyx ever discovered anywhere in Europe. In the past, archaeologists have uncovered fragments or isolated components of similar instruments. However, finding a specimen that has survived in an almost intact condition is exceptionally rare. As a result, the discovery immediately attracted the attention of archaeologists and historians around the world. What makes the story even more intriguing is its potential connection to one of the most famous figures in ancient British history. During their research, scientists determined that the horn may have been buried sometime during the 1st century AD. This was also the period when fierce conflicts erupted between Celtic tribes and the Roman Empire. Based on this dating, some experts believe the artifact may be connected to a tribe once led by the legendary Queen Boudica. Many of you have probably heard that name before. Boudica was the renowned warrior queen who led native British tribes in a rebellion against Roman rule. Her uprising became one of the most dramatic chapters in ancient British history and is still remembered today as a symbol of courage and resistance. If that theory proves correct, this carnyx may have been present during some of the most important moments of that historic conflict. It is even possible that its powerful sound once echoed across the fields of ancient Britain, rallying Celtic warriors as they marched into battle against the mighty Roman legions. Just imagining that possibility is enough to excite researchers. Today, conservation and research efforts on the horn continue with great care. Every detail of the artifact is being carefully analyzed in order to understand how it was made, how it was used, and what role it played within ancient Celtic society. Scientists believe this discovery could significantly reshape our understanding of music, military signaling, and cultural life during Europe's Iron Age. And perhaps the most remarkable thing of all is that after lying buried beneath the earth for nearly 2,000 years, the horn is still telling its story. A story not only about war and ancient battles, but also about sounds that once echoed through history before fading away with time. Thanks to this discovery, we now have an opportunity to come closer than ever before to hearing the kinds of sounds that the people of ancient Europe heard many centuries ago. And isn't that truly incredible? I think it is. Don't you agree? 14,000-year-old evidence could rewrite the story of North America's first inhabitants. Hey, have you ever wondered what the first people to set foot in North America were like? Where did they come from? How did they survive in a world still covered by ice and snow? And could the stories passed down through countless generations actually contain historical truth, or are they simply ancestral legends? These are questions that have challenged archaeologists for decades. Recently, however, a surprising discovery along the coast of Canada has provided evidence that could change the way we view the earliest chapters of human history in North America. You see, long before scientists began excavating or studying this region, the Heiltsuk people, an indigenous community living along Canada's Pacific coast, had been preserving ancient stories about their ancestors. According to traditions passed down from generation to generation, the ancestors of the Heiltsuk settled along this coastline in the distant past, so long ago that no one could remember exactly how many centuries or millennia had passed. To many people, these stories were simply oral traditions that reflected the collective memory of a community. But now archaeology is beginning to suggest that those stories may contain far more truth than we once believed. During an archaeological investigation along the Canadian coast, researchers uncovered the remains of an ancient settlement dating back approximately 14,000 years. That number alone is enough to capture the attention of the scientific community. At that time, Earth was still experiencing the effects of the last ice age. Vast areas of North America remained covered by glaciers, and living conditions were extremely harsh. What makes the discovery even more remarkable is that this settlement was not merely evidence of people passing through for a short period of time. Archaeologists found signs that it had been a genuine residential community. The inhabitants built simple shelters, established a coastal settlement, and maintained their way of life there for a significant period. As excavations expanded, more and more ancient artifacts emerged from layers of soil that had accumulated over thousands of years. Researchers discovered charred remains left behind by everyday human activities. They also uncovered numerous tools designed for hunting and harvesting resources from the sea. Ancient fish hooks, spear points used for hunting marine animals, and a variety of other tools helped paint a picture of the lives once lived at this settlement. One of the most fascinating discoveries was a handheld stone drill used for making fire. Today, starting a fire takes only a few seconds with a lighter or a match. But for people living 14,000 years ago, fire was the key to survival. It provided warmth in a cold climate, allowed food to be cooked, helped drive away dangerous animals, and made life possible in the harsh environment of the Ice Age. To determine the settlement's age, experts used radiocarbon dating on carbonized materials preserved in the soil. The results were astonishing. The evidence showed that people were actively living in this area approximately 14,000 years ago. That means these individuals may have belonged to one of the oldest confirmed human populations ever identified in North America. This discovery not only helps validate the traditional stories preserved by the Heiltsuk people through countless generations, but also opens a new perspective on how humans first settled the North American continent. It suggests that ancient communities may have adapted to coastal environments at a very early stage, taking advantage of marine resources to survive and thrive during a period when much of the world was still struggling with dramatic climatic changes. However, researchers acknowledge that what has been uncovered so far may represent only the tip of the iceberg. We still know very little about the people who lived in this ancient settlement. Where did they come from? How did they travel along the coastline? What was their daily life really like? And how many more secrets remain buried beneath that ancient soil? Perhaps future excavations will provide the answers. But even now, this 14,000-year-old discovery has accomplished something truly remarkable. It has connected the stories once told around Heiltsuk campfires with modern scientific evidence, showing that sometimes the memories preserved by ancestors can endure longer than any stone monument or written record in history. 1,000-year-old Viking grave reveals the shocking identity of a mysterious female warrior. Do you believe that a single weapon buried alongside the dead could completely change a historical story that we once accepted as fact? Sometimes archaeology doesn't uncover gold, silver, or massive treasures. Instead, it reveals small details that are powerful enough to overturn theories that have stood for years. And the story of a more than 1,000-year-old grave discovered in Denmark is a perfect example of that. At first glance, this appeared to be nothing more than an ordinary Viking grave found within an ancient cemetery on the Danish island of Langeland. This region was once home to the famous Viking warriors who helped create one of the most formidable warrior cultures in medieval Europe. For that reason, when archaeologists discovered the remains of a female warrior buried in the cemetery, most people naturally assumed that the grave belonged to a Viking woman. But history sometimes has a way of surprising us. In a study published by researchers from a Polish university, a detailed analysis of the skeletal remains and the accompanying artifacts led to a discovery that forced experts to reconsider the entire story. The deeper scientists looked into the evidence, the more they realized that something didn't quite fit the original image of this woman. The key to the mystery lay in an object that had rested beside the remains for more than 1,000 years. It was a battle axe. To archaeologists, weapons are not merely tools of war, they are often cultural fingerprints. Different peoples typically produce distinctive styles of weapons, each reflecting their own traditions, craftsmanship, and military practices. When experts examined the axe buried with the female warrior, they quickly realized that it did not resemble the types of axes commonly found in Viking graves. Instead, all signs pointed to a different origin. According to the research team, the weapon was actually a type of axe commonly made and used by the Slavic peoples during that period. This discovery immediately raised a fascinating question. If the weapon was Slavic, was the woman buried in the grave truly a Viking? After numerous analyses and comparisons, researchers began proposing a surprising theory. The owner of the grave may have been a Slavic female warrior rather than a Viking woman, as originally believed. This conclusion was unexpected because the grave was located within a Viking cemetery in Denmark itself. That may sound puzzling, doesn't it? Why would a Slavic warrior be buried among a Viking community? According to researchers, however, such a scenario is entirely plausible. Historical evidence shows that medieval Denmark was not an isolated world. On the contrary, it was a region where many different communities interacted with one another. Vikings and Slavic peoples maintained connections for centuries through trade, marriage, migration, and even warfare. At the time, the coastal regions surrounding the Baltic Sea functioned like a network linking multiple cultures. People from different lands could meet, exchange goods, and live alongside one another. As a result, the presence of a Slavic female warrior in Denmark may not have been nearly as unusual as it initially seems. What makes this discovery particularly important is that it is helping historians reconsider the population landscape of Northern Europe during the Middle Ages. For many years, Viking and Slavic communities were often viewed as separate and distinct groups. But this grave suggests that the boundaries between them may have been far more fluid than previously believed. Experts think the discovery could provide evidence that significantly more Slavic people lived in or participated in military activities within Denmark than historians once assumed. If true, that would mean the history of the region was far more complex and diverse than traditional models have suggested. And perhaps the most fascinating part of all is that after resting beneath the earth for more than 1,000 years, this mysterious woman is still telling her story to the modern world. An ancient axe, a set of skeletal remains, and a seemingly ordinary grave have opened the door to an entirely new chapter of history, reminding us that the past is always filled with unexpected secrets waiting to be discovered. Mysterious vessel in the dead city of Pompeii reveals a surprising connection to ancient Egypt. One day, archaeologists were carefully excavating the remaining ruins of the famous city of Pompeii. Everything seemed routine until they uncovered an object that appeared completely out of place. It had not been crafted in the familiar Roman style, nor did it possess the characteristics commonly found in artifacts from the ancient city buried by a volcanic catastrophe. Instead, the object bore unmistakable signs of a civilization located thousands of miles away from Pompeii. And from that seemingly small discovery, an astonishing story about the connection between two ancient worlds began to unfold. When most people hear the name Pompeii, they immediately think of the famous Roman city that was wiped out in an instant when Mount Vesuvius erupted in AD 79. Hot ash and toxic gases buried the entire city, freezing the lives of thousands of residents at a single fateful moment. Ironically, that devastating disaster transformed Pompeii into one of the world's most valuable archaeological sites, allowing us to observe the daily lives of Roman citizens from nearly 2,000 years ago, with extraordinary detail. Then, during the investigation of an area that once housed a food stall known as the Thermopolium del Gallo, specialists from the Parco Archeologico di Pompeii Archaeological Research Institute made a discovery that immediately caught their attention. A Roman thermopolium can be thought of as the ancient equivalent of a modern fast food restaurant, a place where people stop to purchase hot, ready-to-eat meals. No one expected that such a modest establishment would contain an artifact with such an extraordinary origin. Amid the ash-covered ruins of the dead city, archaeologists discovered an exquisitely decorated vessel. From the very first glance, they knew it was not a local product. Its shape, colors, and manufacturing techniques displayed distinctive characteristics associated with ancient Egypt. Unlike the pottery commonly found in Pompeii, this vessel was made from glazed ceramic with a glossy blue-green and yellow coating. This material was highly prized in ancient Egyptian art and was often used for valuable and prestigious objects. But what amazed experts even more were the images decorating the surface of the artifact. Wrapped around the vessel were intricately crafted scenes depicting people, animals, and plants engaged in hunting activities. Every detail had been executed with remarkable precision, reflecting the extraordinary skill of ancient artisans. Despite nearly 2,000 years having passed and the vessel being buried beneath thick layers of volcanic ash, the designs remained clear enough to tell the story of the place where it had been created. According to archaeologists, vessels like this were typically found in the gardens or residences of wealthy individuals. They were often used as decorative objects or as symbols of social status. For that reason, discovering a high-end Egyptian vessel inside a food stall in Pompeii was particularly surprising. So how did an object crafted in Egypt end up in a shop in southern Italy? After extensive research, experts suspect that the vessel may have been produced in Alexandria, the famous port city of ancient Egypt. At the time, Alexandria was one of the world's greatest commercial centers where goods from Africa, the Middle East, and across the Mediterranean were constantly being exchanged. From there, the vessel could have traveled along maritime trade routes before eventually arriving in Pompeii. This discovery not only helps researchers better understand life in Pompeii, but also demonstrates the astonishing level of connectivity between ancient civilizations. It proves that even ordinary residents living in a Roman city could gain access to products originating from lands thousands of miles away. And perhaps the most fascinating part is that this vessel survived one of the most famous disasters in human history. 2,800-year-old gold-inlaid spears reveal a mysterious ritual of ancient Northern Europe. What could cause a valuable weapon to be buried in the ground instead of being carried onto the battlefield? Why would people living nearly 3,000 years ago choose to hide exquisitely crafted treasures in a place where no one could ever see them? And were these ancient artifacts simply weapons, or did they carry a greater secret connected to the beliefs and power of an entire civilization that disappeared long ago? These are the very questions capturing the attention of European archaeologists following a remarkable discovery in Denmark. The story began during excavations near the village of Boeslunde on the island of Zealand. There, archaeologists from the Vestjylland Museum uncovered a site believed to have been a sacred area dating back to the Bronze Age. The location had long been famous for numerous important archaeological discoveries involving gold and ancient ritual activities. Yet even the most experienced experts never expected that beneath what appeared to be ordinary soil lay a pair of truly unique artifacts. As layer after layer of earth was carefully removed, two long metallic objects gradually emerged. At first, they looked like little more than pieces of metal distorted by the passage of time. But the more closely archaeologists examined them, the more they realized these were anything but ordinary finds. Before them lay two extremely ancient iron spears, weapons crafted from a material that was still rare in Northern Europe during that period. What makes this discovery so extraordinary is not only the remarkable age of the spears. Although they had been buried for nearly 2,800 years and subjected to continuous environmental wear, traces of incredibly intricate gold inlay still remained on their surfaces. Decorative gold patterns running along the spearheads and shafts could still be clearly identified, demonstrating that these objects once held exceptional value for their owners. Just think about it. Nearly 3 millennia ago, producing a weapon made of iron was already a difficult achievement. At the time, iron was a new material, rare and much more challenging to work with than bronze. Yet these ancient craftsmen not only created iron weapons, but also adorned them with gold, the most precious metal of their age. That strongly suggests these spears were almost certainly not intended for ordinary warriors. Using radiocarbon dating on birch resin preserved on the tip of one spear, scientists determined that the weapons were manufactured between 900 and 830 BC. This finding makes them the oldest iron artifacts ever discovered in Denmark. The surprises did not end there. X-ray imaging revealed circular gold designs hidden beneath layers of corrosion. These decorative patterns demonstrate the astonishing metallurgical knowledge and craftsmanship of the ancient peoples of Northern Europe. Every detail was executed with remarkable precision, reflecting a level of technical skill far beyond what researchers had previously imagined for this period. Even more intriguing is the fact that the spears were discovered directly above an underground water source and near a location where numerous gold artifacts had been found in the past. According to archaeologists, this is unlikely to be a coincidence. In many ancient European cultures, natural water sources were regarded as sacred places where people performed ritual offerings or presented valuable gifts to the gods. For that reason, there is a strong possibility that these spears were not lost or forgotten. Instead, they may have been deliberately placed in the ground as part of a special religious ceremony carried out nearly 2,800 years ago. If this theory proves correct, the discovery would provide rare evidence that could help us better understand the spiritual life of Northern European communities before the Viking Age. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of all is that researchers have not yet found any other gold-inlaid weapons like these anywhere in Northern Europe. Even in Central Europe and Greece, regions that were home to many advanced ancient civilizations, comparable artifacts are extremely rare. That makes the Boeslunde spears a discovery that is virtually one of a kind in all of Europe. Dear friends, after exploring all of these discoveries, we've probably realized one important thing. History is not a book that has already been completely written. Beneath the ground, inside ancient tombs, forgotten cities, and even seemingly ordinary artifacts, countless secrets are still waiting to be uncovered. Every new discovery doesn't just provide answers, it often raises even more questions that are difficult to explain. So which mystery from today's list amazed you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow Ancient History so you can join us in uncovering even more fascinating secrets of the ancient world in future videos. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. For now, thank you for watching. Goodbye, and I'll see you in the next video.